If you're a mid-level to C-suite leader who wants to own your growth and figure out your next small, brave move to achieve your leadership goals, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Small Brave Moves podcast, a weekly deep dive on how to be braver in leadership and in life for exceptional results. I'm your host, Nicole Bianchi, best-selling author, certified master executive coach, NSA certified speaking professional, chief bravery officer, and tough talk expert. If you're ready to become a better, braver, and more authentic leader, let's dive in. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Alan Utley, speaker, certified leadership coach, and the HR pro on a mission to detoxify the workplace. With 25 years of senior HR experience, Alan knows what really creates thriving cultures and what quietly poisons them. Alan recently embarked on a powerful 30-day journey exploring what he calls fanatical grace and how grace, when fully activated, can transform leaders, teams, and entire organizations. We're going to dive deep into brave leadership, what it means to show up fully human at work, and the kinds of conversation that sparks real healing and growth. Please welcome Alan Utley to the Small Brave Moves podcast.
Yay.
I am so excited to have you here to talk all things bravery. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a result that you're proud of creating.
Thank you, Nicole. First, can I please say it's such a delight to talk to you today. I met you a few months ago in Nashville, and you had this energy about you. I just knew I needed to be friends. And will you be my best friend?
Yes.
Not seeing you now.
Best friends forever. Don't make it awkward.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Okay. So let's talk about me. So I think the best way to describe me to anyone who doesn't know me yet, I'm that guy with the boy next door sort of energy that, fun and friendly, who's actually really serious about detoxifying the workplace. That's my thing. That's my jam. And to me, I think it's so important that we create healthy, productive cultures where people actually want to go to work and thrive. And I do that a couple of different ways. By day, I'm a practicing HR professional, HR leader. I've been doing that for 25 years. So I'm in industry practicing it every day. And I say practice on purpose.
Yes.
And on top of that, for the last 10 years, I've been doing my own thing as a coach of leaders, professionals who are growth minded and want to thrive in whatever space they're in. And then most recently, I've been playing around with training and speaking. Most recently, I made the leap and decided I'm going to be a keynote speaker, and I'm doing that. And I've got a full calendar. Well, not full, but my calendar is filling up this year with a great opportunity to share my message about detoxifying the workplace. So thanks for having me.
I love that. So talk to me about the small, brave moves to get you to taking this detoxifying the workplace to a whole new level outside of your immediate influence within the business.
Well, you were there. You were there for this moment, but let me lead up to it. I've been just playing with this idea for years, and this idea is it's okay to be nice, right? It's the whole boy next door vibe. It's okay to be nice, but I've been realizing that's not enough. It's not okay to just be nice, and I also know that being nice isn't necessarily the most effective method.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've always known in my heart is there is a better way to show up. There's a better way to lead. And I've been personally impacted by what I would call toxic leaders.
Yeah.
And I've worked alongside toxic leaders, and I've coached them, and I've conducted the investigations into the behaviors of toxic leaders. You could call it petty, bad vibes, whatever you want to call it, but I like to call it toxic. Yeah. And so I decided to really focus on those moments when I experienced the opposite. And there was this particular moment, which we can come back to if you like, but this particular moment that was transformative for me when I realized what it actually takes to see the human and let the human thrive in the workplace. And so that moment you were there, it was in December, it was in Nashville. I was in a room of 200 outstanding, extraordinary people. And I stood up and introduced myself and I said, I'm Alan. I want to detoxify the workplace. And so that was my brave move.
Yes.
Small little brave move of standing up and announcing, this is who I am. This is my mission. This is why I'm here. This is what I want to do. And by doing that, now I have to follow through
Mhm.
because I've told a bunch of people I'm going to do it.
Oh, well, but here's the deal. You not only had the intention inside of you, but you getting up and speaking it and putting it out in the world allows, right, for the series of small brave moves that will take place. Because I'm one small brave move always leads to another. And when we jump on here and you're like, listen, I've got my calendar's filling up for fall in keynote speaking. I mean, had you not declared that, put it out there, said, and you have such a relevant topic, not just yesterday, today, and in the future
Yeah.
around, because we all, I guarantee there are listeners listening right now who are going, nodding their heads, going, yep, we could use a little Alan Utley in our workplace right now because we're dealing with some toxic issues.
And you're right, because after that moment that I did that thing, I decided to start this 30-day challenge for myself. And I don't know if you know about this. I
Yeah.
don't know if I've shared this.
Oh,
Okay. So what I've discovered is this idea of grace. I'm calling it fanatical grace because grace is not enough. You got to get fanatical about it. And so on January 2nd, I started a 30-day journey where I explored the idea of fanatical grace in my life. Looking back over the moments that I've had, the experiences that I've had, but I also looked forward around me. And every day I was discovering it as a parent, as a spouse. I met some random person on a bus and we met each other and he told me this phenomenal story that I said, that's grace.
yeah.
And so I did this deep work for 30 days on top of a busy work schedule. And I started posting about it on LinkedIn. And every day I told a story. I started developing my message through this 30-day journey. Halfway into it, somebody who I know reached out and said, Fanatical Grace, love it. Come talk to my team. And that's when it began. That was
Oh,
my first keynote. And
yeah.
so my journey ended on January 31st. And then
Yeah.
I had 12 days to get my first keynote read.
But you knew what to talk about. I mean, you knew
Yeah.
because you had done the work and the research and not just inside, right? Inside of your workplace as well. And so an example of, I think, fanatical grace is the conversation, right? Of getting a group of executive leaders together, right? To which started off as a tough talk, but turned definitely into a brave conversation. But I think about the grace that you showed in pulling. So for those listening, raise your hand or nod your head or honk your horn if you have worked with a group of leaders where there were some challenges and issues going on between them. And then you're watching this and you're like, okay, what do we do about it? Well, Alan steps up and steps into the conversation. I'm going to hand it to you to take it from there.
Oh, sure. Thank you. And yes, I've been there and I'll tell you about it. I know other people have been there too. So I hope this resonates with some people. And by the way, I wasn't the only person involved in this. There were many hands in the pot, but I'm going to call it a politically challenging situation where two people were on opposite ends of a topic, whatever. I'll be general, and they disagreed. And there were a lot of voices, a lot of opinions, a lot of perspectives coming in. And then it became battle lines were drawn. And in the end, when you draw battle lines, you go to battle. And
Yes.
in the end, someone's going to win because it doesn't have to be like that in business.
Right.
But we create that for ourselves, don't we? We
Mhm.
create these battles. And when you get into it and you lose all ability to be logical and thoughtful, then it becomes about winning. It doesn't matter what the right thing to do
Mhm.
is. It becomes about winning. So
Mhm.
that's where these two people were in. And as an HR person, you know this, you don't really get to pick sides.
No.
Actually, you do. You pick the business side, right? You pick
Yes, that's true.
best for the business,
What's best for the business. Yes.
best for the business in the end, which isn't always what's best for the individuals, unfortunately. And in this situation, I was playing this very careful role of remaining neutral, but trying to facilitate. In the end, unfortunately, one person left the situation, in their opinion, scathed. They had lost.
Mhm.
And what's unfortunate about it is what happened. So a few months later, when the dust had settled, I was feeling a disturbance in the force, if you will,
Yeah.
a glitch in the matrix. I
Yeah.
was feeling a disconnect with me and one of those individuals who had been involved. And I had an opportunity to be in front of that person. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask them what's up. Just going to say, I feel like something's off with our vibe and our relationship.
Yeah.
Is am I reading this right, or am I totally off base? And if so, cool. And if I am reading it right, let's talk through it. Before I did that, I did get some counsel, as one should, from a few people that I trusted in my community, and they said, "Don't do it." They said, "Don't ask. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't look for the truth, because what how will it serve you in the end?" So
Mm.
I listened to their good advice and then did it anyway. I got in front, and I'll never forget sitting in that little office. They're at their desk. I'm sitting, the desk with the little chair that's kind of awkward sitting in front. So
Yes.
you know the one.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So there I am. And I warm up the conversation as one does.
Right.
And then I say, "Hey, there's something I wanted to ask you about that's been on my mind. I feel like something's off with our energy and our relationship, and it just doesn't feel like it has been in the past." Because for me, it's usually just easy, it's smooth, and it wasn't. It was short, and there was no, they weren't adding anything to the conversation. And when I asked that, I braced myself. I did not realize what was going to come next. They looked me in the eyes and they said, "I don't trust you." Huh, and that was not fun to hear. And Nicole, I can count on my finger the number of times that that's ever happened to me, that someone looked
Right.
me in the eyes and said, "I don't
Right.
trust you."
Right.
And so that was hard to hear. And every instinct in my body wanted to find out what happened and then prove her wrong.
Right.
And they went on to explain that this thing happened and I was involved. And in the end, because they came out of it scathed,
Yeah.
they saw me as part of the problem,
Absolutely.
that I hadn't done enough to help. I realized as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this and I'm taking all of this, it's like being punched left and right.
Right.
I made a choice. And that choice was, let them be right,
Yeah.
because there's nothing I can say or do that's
Mhm.
going to change their opinion of their reality. Their reality in that moment was more important than my certainty.
Mhm.
And so that's what I chose. I chose the relationship over being right.
Mhm.
And I guess that was a brave move, because I don't know if it's helped me. I mean, we're still working on our relationship.
Sure. Well, it's such a great example of the what's going on conversation, the third conversation in the 5 tough talks. And this one ends up being so many times the most awkward conversation. People are uncomfortable. They're scared to ask because they don't know. I mean, when you go to ask that question, it's going to be one of three things. One, there is something that they're dealing with that they'll maybe share with you. Two, it could be your relationship, or three, it could be you, you're part of the problem that they're dealing with. And that's a lot to be able to take a deep breath, ask that question, and sit there and really trust silence and listen for what's coming back. When I ask the question early on in my keynote, I'll have people raise their hands if they would have a what's going on conversation around a particular story that I just told.
Oh,
And almost always it's about 10%, give or take 2%. So 8 to 12% is the range, but on average, it's 10% of the people will raise their hand and say, "Yes, I would have that what's going on conversation."
okay.
Only 10%,
That's small.
which means that we're missing out on this. And so when I think about, it's definitely a coaching move to have the what's going on conversation. But I also think like your presence begins the intervention. And you just pausing and showing that you care enough to ask the question.
Mm.
Because, question, would this leader have ever come to you without you asking the question and said, "Alan, I've got a problem"?
With me?
Yes.
Probably not.
Right.
I don't know, but probably not.
They hadn't at this point,
Yeah.
right? Up until this point, they had not.
No.
And so they weren't brave enough to say, "Helen, I'm struggling with what happened. I'm struggling with this or that, or here's how I see it." Whatever they wanted, they didn't do it. And instead, there's this weird awkwardness between you that you're picking up on. And now but you were brave enough to have and begin the what's going on conversation. And we don't know how those conversations are going to end or what needs to be rebuilt or the path forward, but you took action. And that's the biggest move is, would there would it have remained unresolved had no conversation even taken place?
Yeah, I don't know, but I know that it was uncomfortable.
Yes. I call this one, I'm like, hashtag awkward is the what's going on conversation, because
Yeah.
it is. It is very tough, but again, your presence is the intervention, and you have the highest likelihood of turning that relationship around by opening the door for that to take place.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe it was a small, brave move in the end. And I also look at it as a small, meaningful moment
Yes.
that maybe I demonstrated something to them in that moment that you can have these conversations, you can demonstrate that kind of bravery.
Yes.
And maybe that little seed will grow over time. And maybe that is the moment that we started rebuilding that bridge. It might take a while. It's a
Right.
big bridge with a lot of resources, a lot of raw material.
Oh, I love it. What's so interesting is we continue to rise in our organizations, right? That feedback becomes minimal, right? We don't always say what needs to be said.
Yeah.
And it just can be challenging and it gets messy, right? With egos, with business decisions. And so I appreciate you stepping up and into the conversation to just right to one facilitate it or mediate it or be a part of the potential resolution, but then also recognizing when the results didn't come, there was still something at the end, right?
Yeah.
Where it, and again, I was just in a room with 3,000 people last week, and it was 10%. Only
Yeah.
10% would they would say something. So I applaud you for
It's
doing
an
it.
opportunity. Thank you. I appreciate you
Yeah,
appreciating me
yeah.
for that. So that's something good that comes out of it. And maybe it's a story that will
Yeah.
help others.
Well,
Yeah.
so tie that to fanatic grace.
Yeah.
Tie the lesson you learned for me to the fanatic grace, because I know there's a lesson in here for us.
Yeah. So for me, fanatical grace is this idea of letting our humanity transform in the
Mhm,
workplace. And I think the simplest way to put it is grace for me, my definition of it is creating space for imperfection.
mhm.
It's allowing it to not be okay. It's making not okay, okay.
Yeah,
And it's giving something that is not yet earned to someone or not even deserved necessarily.
yeah.
So what I've uncovered are what I'm calling the 3 imperfect shifts to
Ooh,
move your workplace from possibly toxic leaning
yeah.
to transformative, to thriving. And one of those shifts within there, so let me tell you the 3 shifts. It's an unhealthy workplace could be focusing on too much fixing,
Mhm,
forcing, or fear.
mhm,
Then you can shift to forging, flowing, and freedom.
mhm.
And within the second one, which is forcing to flowing, within there you find this idea of letting a relationship form instead of trying to be right, building a relationship rather than trying to be right. And that is tying back to the story that I just told.
Yeah.
And allowing a little bit of natural momentum rather than trying to force. I could have forced it by saying, you're wrong and here's why.
Mhm,
I'm allowing things to grow and transform naturally now by sitting in the discomfort.
mhm. I love the forcing to flowing, and what I think about is I'm in the middle of writing my 3rd book called Conquer Yourself, Not Others, and
Amazing.
it's all about the leadership shift that changes everything, and it's about flow and ease, and so
Yeah.
once we release control over many different things, and also just take a look on the inside, we can operate in a place of so much more flow and ease, and a bit of imperfection as well, right?
I just love the word flow, right?
Mhm, me
It,
too.
there's a metaphor that I use in my talk, which is a diamond. Everyone loves a good diamond,
Yes.
right? We know that pressure creates diamonds.
Mhm.
But you know what pressure also does to diamonds? Cracks them.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So talk to us about what is the first small brave move you would suggest to a listener if they want to make some of the changes, make some of the moves that you've made on your journey?
All right. I would say, and I have a story that I could attach this to if we have time.
Absolutely.
Okay. Allow yourself to be imperfect
Mhm.
because it within that imperfection lies authenticity.
Yeah.
Be beautifully flawed
Yeah.
and allow that to be the way that you show up to your work. And so once upon a time, early in my career, I found myself trying to be perfect. Been there? That's very true. Okay. But I'll tell you the reason is when I first, you might be surprised to hear this, but when I first started out in HR, I wasn't good at it.
Yeah.
I was not good at it and I didn't really understand it. I got a degree in it and I still didn't quite know what I
Yeah.
was doing. And I was getting a lot of feedback and I even got almost this close to being put on a performance improvement plan, which sounds funny for an HR person, but I was this close.
Yeah.
So I started to correct myself by relying on, I relied on scripts. I created scripts for myself to better prepare for those meaningful conversations, whether it was an interview
Yeah.
or talking about FMLA or whatever it was. And that was actually a very useful tool for me early on because it helped me be better prepared. But I eventually started relying on it. It became a crutch. And I would show up to these conversations too polished.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't take credit for this, but I've heard recently this idea of if you're too polished, people will be blinded by the shine.
Yeah.
Right? And I love that. And I think it's perfect. So I
Mhm.
got feedback one day. I walked out of an interview. I was interviewing with a hiring manager. His name was Norm. He
Mhm.
was this operational type, but also very friendly that everyone loved being around.
Yeah.
And after the interview, he and I conducted this interview together. The candidate walked out the room and we're in this little conference room, this little round table. And he says, Alan, stop performing. Stop being like, just be a person, man. Just talk
Wow.
like a person. And at first I thought, what do you know about recruiting?
Yeah. P.S. In recruiting, you have to sell, sell, sell all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So if you're not careful, you
Yeah.
can get to a point where you look robotic and you look
Yeah.
fake. And in fact, I did get called a robot once.
Yeah.
And it was a termination conversation. And you have scripts, right? You always
Right.
have to have a
Of
script.
course.
There's a certain thing you have to
Of course.
say. And so I'll never forget delivering that line. I regret to inform you, your position's been eliminated. And this engineer looked at me and said, you're just an HR robot. Do you even care? And so those two pieces of feedback within very short amount. Thank you. Yeah, I know it hurt. It really did. But getting that feedback was a wake up call for me. And from then on, I started realizing, and I got more feedback from people saying, just be you, man. Just, it's okay to fly your freak flag. You don't got to be perfect. Just be you. And so that is my advice for
Yeah.
anyone, wherever you are in your career. Stop trying to be something you're not. Stop
Mhm.
trying to be an image of something perfect or an image of a boss.
Mhm.
Just be you and imagine the possibilities of what can.
I love that. I love that. That's been a challenge for me over the last even 4 to 5 years going out, and really talking about things that are really important to me or the passionate things, or even just showing up in a way that is a little less corporate, right? Because we all
Yes.
grew up in corporate. So it's like,
Perfect.
oh, you say this, you do this, you behave this way.
Yeah.
So that really resonates for me. And it's something that I am finding a lot more joy in showing up like, okay, if I've got big energy, it's not for everybody. That's okay, Nicole. You don't have to
Okay.
always dial it back if you're in a different room.
I
Like,
love your energy, Nicole. When you're in the room, people know it. And it's amazing. It's
that
great.
can be good and that can be sometimes not good. So I'm at least emotionally into I give myself a little range. Like you can go
Okay.
up here and you can go down, but don't shrink so much to fit
Yes.
in a room that you probably shouldn't even be in. That's my thing. So I give myself a little bit of a range, but before I would shrink, 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 and I was like, I'm not shrinking anymore. So
Yes. I think physical awareness is key, right? Emotional intelligence is
yeah,
important because you have to navigate
yeah,
appropriately in any
sure.
situation. But yeah, don't shut yourself off.
Right,
Mm,
right,
yeah.
right. So talk to us about what is your next goal? What is that next small brave move that you need to make to get there?
I have this message that I got to get out there.
Yeah.
Your CEO doesn't see me coming. You need to know about Fanatical Grace. And so I've started to fill my calendar for this year. I'm getting opportunities to get in front of people. And these are lots of great opportunities that are local. So my next big move is to get a gig somewhere else, somewhere outside of my network, somewhere outside of my community. And I would love to get on a stage for an annual conference, like at a company's conference, so they can all hear this message. Because I think that an organization could make Fanatical Grace their competitive advantage.
Mhm.
And wouldn't that be amazing if they made that part of their culture?
Yeah.
I just want to see that happen because I think it would make such a difference. So that's my goal. That's my next big move is to make that happen.
I love that. And when we have a listener go, okay, I need to connect with Alan, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, well, my coaching and speaking company is called My Coach Next Door.
Okay.
And you can find me online at My Coach Next Door. That's my website. I'm also on TikTok where I put a lot of content out about, I make fun of the bosses we love to hate.
Yeah.
And I throw in a few pieces of advice here and there too. So please come find me on TikTok and let's engage there. But yeah, find me. And then also Alan at My Coach Next Door. It's really easy.
Perfect. Perfect. And we'll put it in the show notes as well. Alan, thank you so much for getting real and putting it out there and sharing with us the small, brave moves you've made and you're planning to make. I couldn't appreciate you so much more. So thank you.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Best part of my week.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Small Brave Moves podcast. If you're wanting to take this work even deeper, I'm here to help. From engaging in inspirational keynote speeches to transformational coaching and workshops for leaders and teams, page-turning books, online courses, and enlightening leadership development retreats. There are so many ways that we can work together to take your leadership to the next level. For more information, check out the show notes, and let's do this together. One small brave move at a time. See you next week.